The discussion of having children has been very popular, and specifically why you shouldn't have kids. And something that I really find interesting as someone who studies history is I became very perplexed as to why this is such a big narrative now. Don't get me wrong, I totally understand. You're sitting here going, obviously, I mean, look at the economy, look at the state of the world. And of course, like, I agree that those are all very valid reasons as to why you wouldn't want to have kids, but then I started to realize the real root cause of what is going on, and it's a lot sadder than people would have you think. Because the thing is that this generation isn't all too different. Like, this specific situation of the conversation of whether we should or shouldn't have kids is not that different from different parts of history. When the Great Depression was happening, these conversations were happening as well. When some of the worst things throughout history were happening, people were having these conversations as well. I think the thing that's really shifted here is not only technology, but people's willingness to, like, sustain power or do anything about it. And before you sit here and go, well, this isn't my fault, it kind of is. The issue is that we're seeing a society and a culture shift so rapidly that it can't keep up with itself. And that's something that I don't think a lot of people, like, account for. But I think that people are really interesting because they think that history is linear. They think that what they're going through is the worst thing that's ever happened ever. And I think for the first time in history, that very well may be true due to technology. While there are no new acts under the sun, the interesting thing is that we're witnessing them all simultaneously at the same time. And that's really the catalyst for a shift here. The only difference is that throughout history, people weren't bombarded with this, and people had the ability to have their power. And before you say, oh, well, no, that's not true, it very much is, because before, you could protest, you could do something about it. It might have taken decades, years, or even hundreds of years with some of these wars, but something could eventually be changed. And something that I'm watching is people are giving themselves up, not to society, but to technology. Technology has replaced society. And the reason why I think that people don't really want to fight for reality, they don't want to fight for, because let's just be honest, people have thrown in the towel. And I think that a lot of people aren't realizing this. People are giving up. And it's not because of one reason. There are a multitude of reasons, and maybe one takes precedent over the other. But I think the problem is that people are being disingenuous in these conversations because they're acting stupid. I just don't know why anyone would want to have kids. There are a lot of reasons as to why someone may want to have kids, but does that make it justified? And that's where that kind of conversation comes in. And this video isn't to, like, convince anyone of anything. I think that you should have a choice. That's my personal opinion. I think if you don't want to have kids, you shouldn't have kids. I think that the people who don't want to have kids are probably not fit to have children, and that's great because it's not for everyone. And I think that that's such a demonized statement in today's society. Oh, you think that I can't? Oh, you think I'm inadequate? No, I just think that you shouldn't do something if you don't want to do it. Just like I think that if you want to have kids, you will have kids. I think the people who want to do something are going to do it regardless of your personal morals and standpoints. And that's a big point that I'm getting to here is that, like, I think that people have expected others to adhere to their moral and social codes and standards, and that's just not the world we live in anymore. And you can do this on, like, a micro level or, like, a macro level, and you can look at the way that society has shifted through, like, a lot of the times before, people were given what to think and how to behave. They're, mainstreamed into major religions, organized religions. They, would grow up in a church. They'd probably marry who they met in the church. They would have kids with them, and they would raise their kids to be in that church because these people were like, okay, this works. We're afraid of change, and we really just want to be safe. And that's what it boiled down to, because I think that people have forgotten what survival was like. I think people have gotten a little too accustomed to the fact that you can just go to the grocery store and pick anything up. Because I watch people today grasp at straws of, like, why would someone do this or that? Oh, it's not a big deal. Like, I remember I was talking to someone about, like, there have been whole wars waged over things like grain or agriculture. And people are like, oh, that's so stupid. Like, why would anyone do that? And that shows me how out of touch you are. Because for a really long time, that's all you had. All people were worried about for a majority of history was food, shelter, and water. It was basic necessities, and that's what drives a majority of actions throughout history. And you could use systems like organized religion for social mobility depending on what kind of society you are in. And there are many other organizations and ways of thinking or spirituality where, depending on the country, place, or geology you were in, you could use that to your benefit as well. And to any of you who've gotten to this point, you're like, oh my gosh, this bitch is just yapping, like, what is she talking about? That's what I mean, is the thing is, we have shifted our ideas, we've shifted our ability to have conversations because no one's goals are the same. For a lot of people, it's not about food, shelter, or water anymore. It's literally like, look at these Western countries. A lot of the times, it's about capital. What can you buy? What are you worth? What are other people worth? It's all monetary. Oh, I can, flex up and buy a Lamborghini. The fact that that's a precedent of anyone's life shows me all I need to know. And this happens in Eastern countries a lot as well. I think that people have just been kind of like trained and taught to be really racist in their beliefs, thinking, oh, well, this isn't a problem in the East. It absolutely is. I think it's a problem everywhere, and that's what I'm trying to say. The reason why society is giving up is because society it's not for people anymore. People don't want to live in society. They don't want to live in the world at all. They want to recede to technology because the world is too heinous. People have finally gotten a worldwide tap out button, and people are pressing tap out at such a level that people can't keep up. Like, the world cannot keep up. The infrastructure cannot keep up. While people may exist physically in the world, they are mentally starting to transform and transfer into the online world. That is where you're seeing a lot of power being held. That is where you're seeing a lot of changes. And I think that to a certain degree, people have given up a lot of their power because they've allowed themselves to be shackled to yet another distractor. I'm not saying that like the phone is a sole distractor. I really think that it's a great way of like sending information. I think it's a great way of sharing information. But psychologically, from my knowledge that I know from studying psychology and from my degree, I can see how this disables a massive amount of people on such a wide scale. It's been normalized because people don't think otherwise. This is the new norm. You are not meant to see every single thing simultaneously in the world at once. And if you look throughout history, you can see where like people learn about other cultures or other places, and they literally cannot handle it. A lot of people who are exposed to too much literally would start to shut down mentally and sometimes even physically. I think that people have limitations, and we are in a society where people have been taught that you are not limited by anything because now you have technology and you have the world at your fingertips. But is that right for you? And again, I'm not saying you can't take part in online activism. I'm not saying that it's not an important thing. I'm not saying that this isn't instrumental to the survival of human beings. I think that people are in the worst day and age of whataboutism, or this kind of like belief, which is like, whataboutism is like, oh, well, what about this or that? You don't like dairy, but what about yogurt type of shit. But I genuinely think that we've like allowed ourselves to like say things like that and believe things like that to the point of detriment. Like, I have seen the thing that's like downfalling society really hard, and it is like a key point in the downfall of society, and this isn't really an argument, this is the truth. Within the society that we're living in, I would say, I don't think a lot is the truth, but I think this is really a key factor here, is what I see where people are like, oh, well, you must believe in this because you said this. These jumps, like, you believe in gun registration, you must be a Democrat. You believe in abortion, you must be a Democrat. Or you don't believe in abortion, you must be a Republican. These kind of generalized, like, thoughts and like division shows me that people are being taught by the patterns of society, and a lot of the times they don't even know that. They're not internalizing this, they're just acting it out because it's what they see on a large scale. I remember learning about something in my undergrad, which is, I believe it was the Bobo experiment, where they got this Bobo doll, and they would have these parents come in, and I gotta make a whole other video because I think people would be really interested in this. They'd have these parents come in, they'd have this kid, and the kid would watch the parents like beat the fucking doll up, and then the kids would eventually like internalize that pretty quickly, and they would start to mimic the behavior. And there's countless other studies that have like replicated different like aspects of this, and that have proven that people are adaptable, and they do that for survival. But we're not at the point where this is about survival anymore. This is about control. And unfortunately, it impacts people in the way that it is solely about your survival. It's just that you're not taught to see it in the way that it's being done to you. I don't know, the whole conversation about whether you should or shouldn't, or should be allowed or should not be allowed of having kids has like sparked me to like kind of think about, why is it so different this time around? And I really do think it's because a lot of people are giving up their power in the way that they're letting themselves be exhausted, or they're just simply physically and mentally too exhausted. And I can't blame people because of the tactics that are being used on the masses on a day-to-day basis. People aren't meant to sustain this or experience such abuse on such a wide scale. Let me know what you think down below if you watch this. I'm all over the place, but these are just some interesting thoughts that I've been ruminating on.